Okay, I'm going to start where I left off last time. This is the third installment of this reading of the Unanimous Declaration by the Buddhas. I didn't mean to offend my friend Maru Maru Sensei in my last comment on the last one. Yes, Japanese culture and American culture are very different, and we don't see any problem reading the Gosho while we're sitting in bed with our... I would be sitting here naked if I wasn't making a film, because I usually sleep naked, and I don't mind reading the Gosho when I'm naked, but actually it's kind of too cold right now. It's almost spring, it's almost here, and almost getting warm enough so I can sit here naked before I go to bed. But also in Japan, well, if you show nudity, even if you show it on a porn site in Japan, you can be thrown in jail, which is kind of crazy. Anyway, we won't get into all that because I'm feeling kind of getting over the flu, and I don't want to get into commentary today. Let's just read. One should make certain that one clearly understands the meaning of these passages of commentary. The provisional teachings represent a difficult and arduous method of practice in which one only occasionally attains Buddhahood, and that is a provisional Buddhahood in the realm of dreams. Viewed from the standpoint of the waking state of original enlightenment, it is not true Buddhahood. And if such a path cannot lead one to the Buddhahood that represents the highest goal or reward, then it is a system in which the teaching exists, but no example of anyone who has fulfilled it. How can such a teaching be called true? To adopt and attempt to carry out such a teaching is to mistake the true nature of the sacred teaching of the Buddha. The Buddha in his preaching left proof that Buddhahood cannot be gained through the first three of the four teachings, thus opening the way to fulfill understanding for living beings of this latter age. Opening the way to full understanding for living beings in this latter age. Okay. Living beings in the 9 worlds sleep in an ignorance that accompanies them each moment of their lives, drowned in dreams of the realm of birth and death, forgetful of the waking state of original enlightenment, clinging to dreamlike rights and wrongs, moving from darkness into darkness. For this reason, the thus come one enters this dream realm of birth and death in which we dwell, speaks in the same dream language as living beings with their topsy-turvy thinking, beckons to these living beings in their dreams, speaks to them of distinctions between good and evil as they exist in the realm of dreams, and in the way bit by bit leads and guides them. But because the affairs of good and evil in this dream realm are so manifold in nature, so endlessly and boundlessly varied, he first of all addresses himself to the good, establishing 3 categories of superior, middling, and inferior good. This is the doctrine of the 3 vehicles, the voice-hearer, the cause-awakened one, and the bodhisattva. And after explaining this, he points out that within each of these 3 categories, there are 3 subcategories, those of superior, middling, and inferior capacities. So that, beginning with the highest category, that of superior capacity, within the category of superior good, there are 3 times 3 categories, or 9 categories in all. But all these categories belong in the end to the right and wrong, or good and evil, as they exist in the dream realm of birth and death in the 9 worlds. And all these distinctions represent erroneous views, the way of the non-Buddhists. This is the view set forth in Dwelling into the Essentials. This is a writing by Mialo. But then he explains that the goodness of mind of the highest category, that of superior capacity, within the category of superior good, represents the principle of the waking state of original enlightenment, and hence may be called the root or basis of goodness. At this point, because the listeners are utilizing the power of distinguishing between good and evil as they exist in the realm of dreams, they can begin to understand the principle of the true aspect of the original mind in the realm of wakefulness. At this time, the Buddha points out that although one speaks of two different phenomena, dreams and the waking state, false affairs and true affairs, the mind underlying these is a single entity in either case. When it encounters conditions leading to sleep, it becomes the mind of dreams, but when sleep has passed away, it is the mind of the waking state. In either case, the mind is a single entity, he explains, but in order to lay the groundwork for opening and merging of the dream realm and the waking state, he has earlier preached an expedient means. This addresses the doctrine of the middle way, as it is explained in the specific teaching. Thus, because the principle of the mutual possessions of the 10 worlds, or of all phenomena perfectly fused and integrated, had not yet been made clear, no one could in fact attain Buddhahood. Therefore, we may say that from the Tripitaka teaching up through the specific teaching, all the 8 teachings set forth in the first 42 years of the Buddha's preaching life are in all cases expedient means, and deal with the good and evil in the realm of dreams. The Buddha simply employed them for the time being in order to lead and guide living beings. They are expedient means used as a type of preparation. Okay, so before my film cuts off, this is probably where we're going to end. But anyways, all the first 48 years of his teachings were all for those time periods that he was teaching. And he said after his 5th 500 years after he dies, which is the beginning of the latter day of the law, he'll finally be able to be a time for his true teaching, which was expounded in the Lotus Sutra. Let's see if my film will go longer. I'm going to go on from there. However, within these various provisional teachings, there are some that fall into the category of expedient means, and some that fall into the category of truth. The 2 categories of provisional and true are not completely lacking in these teachings. Thus, within each of the 4 teachings are to be found the 4 perceptions of reality, and they may seem to be the same in all 4 teachings. The words in which they are couched are the same, and they may seem to be no different in the meaning of the words. But if one is misled by the similarity of language into supposing that there is no real difference between provisional and true teachings, then the Buddha's teaching will be destroyed. The teachings that are expedient means exist only in this impure land and not in any of the pure lands. The Lotus Sutra states, quote, "In the Buddha lands of the 10 directions there is only the law of the one vehicle. There are not 2, there are not 3, except when the Buddha preaches so as an expedient means." From this, it is easy to determine whether there is any reason to suppose that one may attain Buddhahood by following the expedient means teachings, which do not exist in the Buddha lands of the 10 directions, and practicing them in hopes of gaining rebirth in the Pure Land, while rejecting and despising the law of the one vehicle which exists in the Pure Lands of the 10 directions. The thus come one, Shakyamuni, the Lord who set forth the lifetime of teachings, preached the complete body of the scriptures and left us this declaration: The Buddha of the three existences all unanimously use the same words and the same intentions in the These pages are so small because there's so many pages in this book. Okay. What was I saying? The Buddha of the three existences all unanimously use the same words and the same intention in the fashion they employ in preaching the teachings. Therefore, I too will preach the teaching in this manner, not differing in a single word. As the Expedient Means chapter of the Lotus Sutra says, following the same fashion that the Buddhas of the three existences employ in preaching the teachings, I now will do likewise, preaching a law that is without distinction. The law that is without distinction is the wonderful law of the one vehicle. It is the law that makes no distinctions between good and evil, the law that preaches that grass and trees, forests, mountains, and rivers, the great earth, and even one particle of dust, all possessed within themselves the full 10 worlds. This one vehicle of the Lotus Sutra of the wonderful law present in one's mind pervades all the pure lands of the 10 directions without exception. The blessing that adorn the living beings and the environment in the pure lands of the 10 directions are present within one's own mind and never depart from it for an instant. This is the thus come one of original enlightenment, the three bodies that are a single unity, and outside of this there is no law. This single law exists within the pure lands of the 10 directions, and no other law exists. Hence it is called the law without distinctions. So this original law is our waking state of consciousness of true enlightenment that we all possess from time without beginning, which is what this paragraph is saying. So let me just say that again. So the blessings that adorn the living beings and the environment in the pure lands of the 10 directions are present in one's own mind and never depart from it for an instant. So our minds from time without beginning never departs from it for one instant, means we've always been Buddhas from time without beginning, and we always will be Buddhas. And that's what the Lotus Sutra is teaching over and over. And that's what Nichiren Daishonin's writings teach over and over. So once again, this part I underlined again. This is the thus come one of original enlightenment, the three bodies that are a single unity, and outside of this there is no law. So the only true Buddha, what do you call it? Later I'm going to talk about the Daigohanzen, because this idea that there's some kind of a great Gohanzen better than any other Gohanzen, better than the Gohanzen inside our life is a myth. Because this is the only one law is our true Buddha nature, which is the true object of worship, which is our life, which is our consciousness.